Okay, hello. You find yourselves on the streets of Arabel, Cormier. You are just outside, having just exited the Temple of Sirik. Samantha Ruthenberg is still with you. You are not sure exactly what time it is, but the sun is high in the sky. You know that it is September 3rd. And you find yourselves together.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Across the table. I don't entirely remember exactly in the argument we were in where we left off.
Well, I believe there was a brief conversation about loyalty, doing the right thing. Someone else can fill this in, but you are free to take this argument any direction you would like. Should you choose to renew it or take it a different direction?
As I recall, fingers were being pointed at Nothing Gold and Euros. Samantha has her tail between her legs. After seeing somebody get zapped, it was Taldred get zapped after slapping Maris in the face. And basically we're just having a walk and talk argument as we go back to the temple.
Okay, so we are en route back to the temple. What's
Yeah.
the idea?
Unofficially.
Nothing Gold has said that she's not going to talk outside, so.
And Samantha had nothing but negative criticisms to add. Very unconstructive, in my opinion.
Although, turning around for a brief moment, she has a perhaps mildly constructive thing to add, perhaps just for you, Taldred.
I'm sorry, you cut out for just a moment there.
Okay.
Sorry.
She turns and looks at you, Taldred Talton. Her brow is furrowed. She looks intense, concerned, like something is as gnawing at her mind. And she has a question for you, Taldred.
Okay.
She asks you, is it too early for a drink? I could use one.
I don't drink.
She looks demure. I do.
Taldred Talton requires no social grease. He comes pre-lubricated. That sounded better in my head.
You have a sense of being... You require no special addition to ingratiate yourself into social situations. You are correct. People take you this way. She looks a bit cross, perhaps a bit wounded. A rare expression for her. Go ahead.
At the very least, if we're going to get libation, this isn't the best place to get in.
Not here. There is a tavern just over your shoulder here. Do you see it? But who would drink here in Little Avernus? Perhaps. Brenner definitely has. Samantha looks like she has different intentions. There's a tavern just by the temple. The Tossed Wave. A locals tavern. That's where I see myself going.
They got food there?
Aye, of course.
I can eat.
She shrugs and starts to move, walking backwards for a second to see if you'll follow.
I will.
Brenner shrug.
How close to the temple is it exactly?
She calls to you over her shoulder. It's just next door. It's across the street from the magic shop that I think you've already been to.
I'd like to check on Walt Forbes first.
Aye, someone should.
as I pass the cruelly fated beggar, as he's so announced, antagonistic, ragged man, as I would say him, does he notice me?
He does. His eyes follow you the entire way down the street. Roll insight.
Five.
You have a sense of being watched.
I'll glare back at him as long as my route allows it.
He crunches his teeth together as he watches you. Not too subtle.
Nothing golden, yours coming along.
Yes, sorry, I was reading the notes because I was on a phone call.
Your fate is your own, here inside the city of Arabel. Don't feel compelled to follow, should you intend to go somewhere else.
I'm going to... Where's Taldred? I'll be next to Taldred. And I'll say, I'll try and squeeze water from the stone. Maybe you can do the same with Forbes.
I had intended.
Sounds good.
Brenner will backtrack to make sure that the other two are following. Sorry, he basically comes up to the two of them. It's a little day drinking after some graphic drama. As if to coach you into it.
I mean, I'll come along, but I don't drink much. However, I could go for a meal.
I think Nothing Gold is sort of looking at the people around them. I guess it's been several hours since the explosion.
How long do you think it's been? Several hours? 2 to 3? 4 to 5?
6.
6?
If it started at dawn and the sun is high in the sky.
I seem to recall we went to the temple immediately afterwards. I think at max it was like an hour and a half had passed. It was a very short span of time.
It is the Temple of Cyric. I wouldn't put it past it to do something fucky with our impression of how time passes. But all that said, what's the vibe? Are people anxious? Are people scared?
Roll perception.
Natural 20.
Little Avernus is where the least of us live. You have a sense that any significant event that happens outside of these people's realm is lacking in gravity. What's one more explosion? What's some priests dying? Some soldiers of the temple? You have a funny feeling that most people here simply don't care.
Alright, she'll turn and move along with Yoros and Brenner.
Brenner will turn to Gas. Are you much of a drinker? Yes, me.
It seems the occasion.
You can't see it through the face mask. You get the impression that Brenner's perk has livened up to this notion.
Any final business here in Little Avernus, or it seems like people are exiting to the north, hitting the ready button? Okay.
Ready to go.
Gastmir, Yoros.
To go.
You find yourself somewhere familiar. Here, the mood is a bit different. You can detect Nothing Gold still listening with your natural 20 for the words of people around you. Here there is a hush tone. You hear people talking about what just happened. The overall motif seems to be, is there anyone really left to guard this city? Is there anyone really here who's going to keep order? Such open attacks, such naked aggression and terrorism really in the city seems unchecked, and people are worried, concerned.
I was actually wondering about that. Do we know what the power structure in this town was like? Was John Smithfield like the de facto mayor or something?
No. The temple operates essentially as a self-governing, self-contained, semi-militant organization of Helm. Arabel maintains a city council and a city guard, and there are bureaucratic entities designed to bring civil service here to the people. However, Arabel is a largely poor city now. There is a lack of social services driven by a lack of tax base. There is a civil government, but you have the impression that it is feckless. And Taldred, you having a bit more experience than most with things like, you know, talking to municipal, like working with mayors, working with local governors, you know that Arabel has sort of a shoestring budget, and their reputation in this area is that this city is really just barely staying afloat. You know that Suzail, the former capital of Cormyr, is occupied, and Arabel stands alone, and you have heard for many years that many people think that they won't stand much longer.
Okay. The way it sounded in the write-up we had ahead of time, it seemed like any of the leaders from Old Cormyr ended up here. Is that correct?
You may find that you're walking around the city with one.
Okay.
In fact, it would not be out of question, I think, to put two and two together and understand that perhaps this is one of the reasons why Samantha and her ilk have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. She may be able to explain more, but she is currently walking through the city toward the T intersection that leads west toward the city core of Arabella. You are passing Prime Materiel, the magic shop, here on the east. And you are able to infer that directly north here must be the Tossed Wave, the tavern that she is referencing. And of course, to the northeast, here, where a lone paladin is now guarding outside, is the temple itself.
Okay, well, Taldred would veer off to the temple momentarily to check on Walt Forbes in the infirmary.
Sounds good. Why don't you arrange yourself accordingly, and we will split the party if necessary to get people where they want to go. Is anyone accompanying Taldred? It sounds like Taldred is walking with great purpose to the northeast. I'm assuming you announce your intention as well.
I already did so, but yeah.
Give me a second.
Nothing Gold going to... Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think everybody's going to the bar except Taldred.
Is that correct? Am I misreading anyone's intentions? Gasimir, Nothing Gold, Euros?
Does Taldred
Let's
want
go to the
anybody to
bar.
go with them?
No.
Okay, then we won't.
What did you say, Ridley?
Gasmir's going to the bar as well. But doesn't seem like Taldrin needs the help, really, and Gasmir's bedside manners are fucking terrible, so nobody would want her there.
As Nothing Gold is eavesdropping, is there any indication as to what the reputation of the Temple of the Radiant Heart is among the common people?
Absolutely. You have noticed from the beginnings of your time here that many people consider the Temple of the Radiant Heart to be a lavish, over-prepared, they are profligates, right? They have too much gold for their own good. They are misspending their resources, what little resources that anybody in the city has. They are misspending the resources on people like you. Many of the common folk have a tremendous bias against people like you, hired adventurers, little more than mercenaries, here in the city, enacting quote-unquote justice while there are open attacks. So yeah, I would say your reputation here, you could reasonably infer, is quite poor, and many people would think, if anything, that you're a waste of money. Samantha looks over her shoulder as she walks into the tossed wave. Before I grab everybody that's over on the west side of this hex, anybody, am I misreading anyone's intention, or are you following her into this tavern?
We're ready to go.
One moment. Oh, and Taldrit. I am placing a couple things on your character sheet to actualize them. You'll know them when you see them.
Okay. Do you mean character sheet or inventory?
Your inventory on the manifest.
Got it.
You find yourself somewhere new. This is the Tossed Wave, a nautical-themed bar here in Arabellan. The main tavern floor is mostly empty. There's one person here drinking by himself at the bar, and you can hear hushed voices in the western room. There's no one at the bar, but you can see the shadow of someone moving in the back room preparing food.
I'm going to follow Samantha's lead. She's been here before I have.
Many times. She sits down at a table with 4 chairs and puts her feet up on the nearest chair, thus occupying 2 of the seats.
I'm going to walk up to the seat that she puts her feet on, and I'm going to cough.
Roll intimidation.
Seven.
She snorts and does not acknowledge you.
I'll do the little sibling thing where I'll sit on the chair anyway and slowly slide her legs off.
She somewhat begrudgingly allows you to do so, but seeming to understand that she still has the upper hand over you, and this is how you must attain space around her.
I will act indifferent to her feet being there.
You do so.
There are only 4 chairs around this table, correct?
That's correct. One of them is occupied by you and Samantha's feet. One is occupied by Gastmere. And
So we have 2 more people.
I believe there are 2 bar stools at the bar, and an additional chair for your.
That's
we have 3 more people.
That's correct.
Am I inferring that you 3 will choose to sit elsewhere? Yoros, Brenner, and Nothing Gold?
Brenner's sitting at the bar, but probably turned around facing the table at this point.
Out of habit, I'm just gonna check around the building real fast.
What are you checking for, Yoros?
Just overall checking. Anything out of place.
Ninjas.
Ninjas.
Roll wisdom. Or no, roll a wisdom saving throw.
13.
You check for obvious interlopers or someone setting an ambush for you. You are able to discern the following things, Eurosnalian. In the eastern side of the ground floor here, there is an empty room. On the western side, you poke your head in and see some strange figures. One of them is vaguely familiar. It's Roger Dale, who you've seen at the temple before. As you are stalking around, the proprietor/bartender, you can only assume, walks over to the meager bar. He eyes you up and then cranes his head over to Samantha. We'll revisit all of you in a moment.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Taldred Talton. You find yourself somewhere very familiar, and yet it is different than you remember it. There's a prominent bloodstain here in the entryway, and the temple is mostly deserted. There's almost no one here.
Do I get the feeling that's because many of them are still on the wall, keeping a lookout?
You can infer that.
Okay. I head to the infirmary to check on Walt Forbes, but I see on the map he's up there. How obvious is that to me?
It would be relatively obvious to you. Perhaps you stick your head down into the infirmary and confer with the acolytes there. Perhaps Skip Schuyler, the paladin here, perhaps he directs you there. But either way, it is trivial for you to find Walt Forbes, who is in his office, should you be looking for him.
Taldred will move into his office and close the door.
He has an uneasy smile, but he is happy to see you. He has the best grin he can manage. Taldred Talton, I suppose I owe you my life.
More or less, yeah.
Well, thank you.
I didn't expect to see you up and moving around so soon.
Someone has to be. Taldred, we still have a mission here. We have something that must be done before the end of the month. I will not let a flesh wound stop me from facilitating that for you.
Taldred moves closer and starts, eyeing him over. He says, you got pain anywhere?
I have one pain that I'm not sure you would be able to heal away. He pats his neck. I'm missing something of grave importance.
Ah, yes. The keys. Brenner took them when you were unconscious, as we thought it would be best to not leave them on your unconscious body, where anyone could grab them.
One moment. He nods. I suppose that makes sense. May I have them back, or are they on Brenner's person now?
Across the table, are they on Brenner or are they on me?
I thought
On
they...
me.
Okay, I thought they were on you. Could you...
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I put them on Taldred's character sheet. Why don't you... So they are on Brenner's. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Moving that conversation forward still. Taldred thinks he kind of crosses his arms, and he's kind of looking down at the floor, considering. With all due respect, Mr. Forbes, after seeing what I saw today, I'm not so sure I want to hand them back to you, truth be told.
You think that they are safer in your possession?
In my party's possession? Yes, absolutely.
Well, I won't fight you on that, having seen also what I saw today and now our resources being even more stretched. However, only one of those keys is for you. The second key, or the first key, should you choose to view it that way, is meant for Roger Dale and his team.
Can we talk about Mr. Dale? Do you know him?
I know of him, as I believe you do as well. What questions do you have about Mr. Dale?
Why is he here?
Because he is one of the most accomplished safecrackers in the known world. We thought that, given what we know is on the other end of these portals, a accomplished rogue who is extremely well versed in defeating locks and getting into inaccessible areas would be an excellent team leader for an incursion into the heart of Zental Keep.
Why not simply have his team and my team work together?
I don't think he would want that. I suspect that he chooses to distance himself from your team on purpose.
Oh, you are so right about that. And that is my point, okay? Roger Dale is a fuckwit, okay? And he is more interested in chasing glory than he is actually saving the fucking world. And I have an issue with that.
Well, I suspect he may have an issue with your interpretation of that as well. However, I will not intervene in your conflict with him. Should you choose to withhold that key from him, I am confident he will come looking for it. I must confess that if he asks me who has the key, which he believes to be his, I would be forced to disclose that it is on Brenner's person, and he may, well, certainly he will come looking for it.
That is acceptable. And if he comes looking for it, I have no use for 2 portal keys. I would probably suggest, I would ask Brenner to give it to him. I don't know if he would or not. I can't speak for Brenner, okay? But putting your faith in that man is a mistake.
Some have said that me putting my faith in you and your team is also a mistake. Time will tell. He shakes his head. Mr. Talton, there's no need for...
Under his breath, Talton goes, I knew it.
There is no need for conflict between the two of us. However, I have 2 important things for you while you are here. And we'll come back to you in a second, Mr. Talton. Back at the Tossed Wave.
Yoris comes back. I think Nothing Gold will say, did you find anywhere more quiet?
Empty room to the left. Group to the right. Or, sorry, reverse that. Empty room to the right. Group to the left. And I will kind of get close to Brenner and I'll just say, Roger Dale's in the other room.
Across the table, Brenner has avoided Roger Dale at every intersection.
Yeah, are we aware of who Roger Dale is by name?
Do you possess knowledge of questionably moral rogues? If so, you might. If not, probably not.
The only interaction I think my character witnessed is Taldred kneeing him in the groin.
Brenner was in the other room when that happened. So again, who?
Fair enough.
When I see Yoros come in, I'll head Bob toward the empty chair at the table.
I will take a seat.
The barkeep is studying you carefully. Him and Samantha exchange a glance, and he starts pouring a drink for her. He waits to see if anybody says anything to him, and it seems like he will be forced to introduce himself, so he does. He calls out, "Welcome to the Tossed Wave. How wonderful to have you. Can I get you anything at all?"
Could we have a round for a group, please?
Around, oh, absolutely. He counts you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And starts pouring drinks.
the table, we have enough money to pay for drinks.
Absolutely do. This costs the manner of copper, silver, things that we do not track. Across the table, you are limited only by the limit of your inebriation.
I'll look at the 3 compatriots at the table and try and figure out where their eyes are going.
The 3 compatriots at the table. You mean Gasmir, Yoros, and Samantha?
That's right. We have 3 people who I assume do not love making eye contact, so I'd like to figure out where they're looking.
Gasmir loves making eye contact, and she's currently doing it with Samantha. Like, she seems to have purposely sat opposite of her to be able to stare at her,
Wonderful.
leaning back in her chair.
She feels your eyes on her and looks a bit perplexed. She says to you, Gastmir, do you need something? Do you want something? Do you have commentary? Perhaps on today's events?
Oh, I want many things, but let's not get into that. Miss Rutherberg, was it?
That's right. Why don't you roll insight?
I'm gonna roll with this terrible thing that's been giving me horrible results lately, so let's see. That's an 11.
Your emerald colored 11. You notice 2 things about Miss Ruthenberg. One, as she leans on the table, you notice again that there is a prominent 5 on her shoulder with a purple dragon cast behind it, like a patch or some type of ornament suggesting where she's from. You also notice that she's a bit singed from today's events, and her hair has seen better days.
Smith has the same issue. She's looking a bit singed as well. But she says, I am curious that you've decided to drink with us. It doesn't seem like you've been very fond of us. In fact, right from the very start, you've been rather...
Cold, she finishes.
Yes, I would say so.
Hostile.
I've been accused of being cold before, but never hostile, necessarily.
I'm sure nothing gold would have something to say to that.
The barkeep places tall glasses of amber ale on the table as you speak.
I'll slide payment back to him and ask his name.
My name is Michael, he says with a curt nod, and walks back behind the bar to prepare some type of food. He seems like a man of few words. As you mentioned nothing gold and the events of earlier today, Gastmir, Samantha smirks a little bit, seemingly happy with her martial prowess. People have accused me of lots of things. Is there a reason why I should be warm toward the lot of you? Remember, you came drinking with me, not vice versa. This is a locals bar.
I am correct to assume we're on the same team, aren't we, Samantha?
Aye, for now.
Is that not reason enough?
Reason enough for what? To be warm?
Well, for one, not to stab us.
Or
I can deal with that. I don't give a shit.
I still doubt the loyalties of that one over there. And I think you should as well. I'll do my best not to stab her again, but no promises. I think you should be wary of the motivations of your companions, as I have learned throughout my life. Just because someone says that they're on your side does not necessarily mean that you share a common goal or certainly common values.
Of course that's correct, but you fucking stabbed her.
And I would
I
do...
doubt her loyalty too, but I didn't stick something inside of her that's metallic.
The
May
reaction
I?
was reasonable under the circumstances, but here's my problem, Miss Ruthenberg. Please do not interrupt me next time, while I'm already doing something. I had her.
Nothing Gold cuts in over Gastmere while she's saying this. If I may say something, I do not hold any resentment for today's actions, so I do not believe that you need to roast her for her reaction.
She smugly smiles at you, Gastmere. See? Even that one understands where I'm coming from.
Yes, I understand that you've lost someone today,
Aye.
and I know what that's like, so be angry, keep being angry. I think that I'm gonna go introduce myself to someone.
I'll drink to that.
Pretty pissed if I got stabbed though. So.
It's not my first time, Yoros.
Yeah, and I've been stabbed plenty of times. Still get mad.
Oh, I'm mad. It's not directed at her.
The drinks are on the table, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna take a long pull of the first one.
You
Is
do.
your anger directed at Cyric then?
That's an interesting thing.
Perhaps it should be. I feel a bit deceived, don't you? Something I've found is you should always direct your anger at someone or something.
Our mutual goal in this case.
You see, Shadowy One, me and the Dryad seem to have commonality here.
Yes, you can at least be assured that we share a common goal, if not common values.
Speaking of common values, before you have the opportunity to go introduce yourself to whoever you're going to introduce yourself to, we check back in with Taldred Talton. Taldred, Walt Forbes produces 2 scrolls and hands them to you. His hand is a little shaky.
His hand is shaky? What do I think of that? Can I do like an inside or?
No, you have to infer.
I have to infer. Well, Taldred will, let me think. He'll kind of like grab him by the wrist, and he'll say, "What's wrong?" Kind of like going for a handshake, but going a little further.
You grab his wrist. He pauses for a bit, but this is not a man of combat or martial power, so he allows you to hold him. He seems to understand, especially after you saved his life earlier today, pulling shrapnel from his chest. You seem to have ingratiated yourself enough with him that he allows this. The scrolls crumple a bit in his hand. He says, "Well, if I told you where these were from, they might make you nervous as well. They're from Maris, at the Temple of Cyric, where I understand earlier today you had a bit of a conflict, shall we say?"
She knew about the attack.
She did. I doubt that she planned it, but certainly she knew. I'm sure she would never tell us if she...
How are you okay with this? Taldred like slams his hands on the table.
It's not that I'm okay with it. It's that I accept these events as they happen. You saw yourself what happens if you attempt to oppose these people directly. It's not that simple. We can't always fight the people who oppose us. We can't always attack directly the people who we perceive to be our enemies. Certainly, while I do not think she is on our side, I have a funny feeling that she may be useful to us in the long term. Look, he He unfurls his hand and tries to offer you the scrolls.
Taldred looks at him. Then he slowly reaches up and grabs them.
There's 2 of them. Lots of text. Very lengthy. I'll place them on the party tab for you. He says, I would appreciate it if you would share these, as they were requested, with your team. Speaking of which, I can't help but notice that you came here unaccompanied. Would it be fair to say, Taldred, that you are the one that I should consider our contact here? Is this your team?
Absolutely, and I would like to be more in the loop with the... I will be honest with you. I will be candid, Mr. Forbes. What I saw today... When I got here, I thought Smithfield was a loon, okay? I thought everything about this reeked of incompetence, okay? The only reason my mind has changed about that is because if Smithfield wasn't onto something, they wouldn't have tried to blow him up. Or succeeded. And they wouldn't have attacked him, all right?
He winces a bit as you say that. Mr. Talton, you are correct in inferring that the reason why we have been attacked is because we are on the precipice of something. We are on the cusp of defeating the Zentarim. Wouldn't
That's
you?
why I'm still here.
And thank you for still being here. I know that it is not easy for you to come back to me after the events of this morning. So, because no one else will likely tell you this, thank you. And go
I
ahead.
appreciate that.
Now, Taldred, if you could do me 2 favors, candidly. 1, please connect Brenner with Mr. Dale. Mr. Oswick and Mr. Dale have something to reconcile. I fear that if you do not facilitate a orderly transference of the key, Mr. Dale will be unhappy, to say the least. If he must come fighting or asking for it, I suspect he will be deeply unhappy.
I don't want that. I'll talk to Roger.
Thank you. And please share this intelligence that the Temple of Sirik has provided to me with your team. I don't know if any of this is useful, but it is more information than you had 10 minutes ago.
What do you think they get out of this? Why would they help us?
Who's they?
The Temple of Sirik.
I have a funny feeling that we are all playing into their hands somehow. Do you know what I mean? Where even them helping us now probably helps them later.
That's what concerns me.
I've walked into a trap or two before. This may be no different. Maris may simply be self-interested. I'm not sure what her motivations are. You may be able to break down the walls of her hostility and determine exactly what it is that she is seeking to do. Just don't slap her, I presume.
No. Tal just lets that one go.
Why don't we check back in at the Tossed Wave? Checking back here at the Tossed Wave, where your glasses of amber ale beckon to you, and Nothing Gold, you were going to introduce yourself to someone. And I believe, Brenner, were you about to do something as well?
I was about to ask a question, but at this point she's stood up and left.
No, Nothing Gold's still there. In fact, she was leaning over towards Brenner.
After Euros had addressed him specifically about Roger Dale, almost frustrated that after not receiving an answer, he would directly ask you, "Do you know who Roger Dale is? Should I care?"
Do you care much about criminals?
Insofar as I'm not being robbed.
He's infamous for being able to get into places that nobody should be able to get into. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
After today, I get the sense that I should not be doing this sort of thing alone. Would you like to come talk to him with me?
Brenner shrugs, stands up, takes another long drink of whatever ale he had. Let's go. You've been stabbed too many times today.
Oh, I could take far more than this.
Really prefer that you didn't. Brenner will look back to the table. He'll nudge Ada as he goes past.
I will grab my drink and come with.
Before she leaves, she'll make eye contact with Gasmere and say, "We need to talk later."
Gasmere lifts an eyebrow.
And then she'll, I think, slinkily lead the way through the hallways towards where Euros indicated Roger Dale might be found.
There is a door on the western wall here that is partially ajar. You hear the sounds of conversation from within, one deep guttural voice and two more humanoid-sounding ones.
She'll motion to the others to be quiet, and can she kind of like stealthily approach and eavesdrop a little on what they're saying?
Roll sleight of hand. Let's see how delicate can you be on your feet. Actually, roll sleight of hand and stealth, and I'm going to roll against it. And give me both numbers.
Okay, so it's a 26 sleight of hand, but only a 13 stealth.
You hear a hushed conversation about the logistics of stealing a crane, like a cargo crane. You're not sure the relevance of this conversation.
Is the door open or closed?
The door is partially ajar. The door is about 15 degrees open.
She'll sort of like cheerily knock and slide in and say, "Hello, friends."
As you knock, the door opens with the force of your knock. There is an ogre sitting here, using 2 chairs. He is the first thing you see. He has an angry expression and says, "What you want?" We want more ale.
I'll put my mug down on the table and slide it over to him.
Why you... Oh. When you do this, he greedily reaches over and grabs it. He can hold the glass of ale in 2 fingers, and he does so and greedily gulps it down. Roger Dale watches with amusement. Him and his female companion watch you with great disinterest.
How did... Brenner's looking around at the structure of this building and will openly ask, How did you get him in here?
Ah, questions from the B team. Love it. How did we get him in here? Well, he's very good at ducking. He's more dexterous than he looks. A good person to have on one's team when you're doing a assault mission or an infiltration mission. What do you have in your group here? An old politician? Oh, and a dryad with a fresh wound. Impressive.
Oh, this is just makeup, actually. She's fully healed, so she just sort of brushes it off.
I'm sorry. Should we know you?
Should I know you? Unfortunately, I do. Should you know me? I don't know. Do you have taste? I guess not.
So I should be embarrassed that you know me, but I don't know you. That's what I'm getting, right?
The ogre looks frustrated with all of the words that you're emitting and says, "More ale. Tiny glass no good for long." Roger Dale helpfully adds, "He's right."
I'll shrug and walk back out to the bar.
So, A-Team, what do you think about today's event? That was fairly unfortunate, no?
I suppose. I would say it's predictable. The Helmites are not known for their competence or acuity in predicting future events. They're good at guesswork, and thankfully they have a lot of money. I'm not sure what other virtues they truly possess.
Well, the person who's funding both of us nearly died today. And, well, he doesn't seem to have, shall we say, next of kin.
Well, he nearly died. That's correct.
How do you know that?
You say this in a accusatory way, it sounds like.
No, I'm just curious. Obviously, I'm still new in town and trying to figure out how information flows.
He motions with his head toward what you can assume is a tiefling with 3 horns sitting to his left. She doesn't acknowledge you.
A divination mage?
Wow, you are extremely perceptive. No sarcasm. That's actually rather impressive. But yes, I can see many things. Or she helps me see many things. The ogre clambers over one of the bar stools toward you and Brenner. "I said more ale. Where's that little one? She gave me 1 glass. Where's the other glass?"
Well, surely you can't expect her to carry those huge barrels of ale all by herself. You've seen her arms. Perhaps you could be a gentleman and go help her?
Be a gentleman? Why don't you be serving wench? You need help carrying? Ha ha ha. Get another one of your little friends. Maybe 2 of you can pick one up.
Sorry, I don't speak this language fluently, so I'm having a lot of trouble understanding what exactly you're saying.
You don't speak common? Ha ha ha.
Well,
The ogre is very amused with himself. His laugh echoes somewhat uncomfortably around the room. He's very loud.
We'll get out of your hair fairly shortly. I just wanted to know, in the interest of not crossing wires, I've heard quite a few things about your, shall we say, adventures previously, and just rogue to rogue, I'm curious what your mark is here.
That's easy enough. My mark is Tyranny Fang. I'm going to kill him and become the next spy master of the Zentarim.
Love that for you.
Thank you. Me too.
Can I
Here's to
roll
that.
insight?
On what? What are you attempting to divine? Is he joking, or is he telling the truth? Is that what you're attempting to
Yeah,
divine?
essentially.
You'll
Is he
have
deflecting away from his actual goal?
you'll have to infer. He seems perfectly serious. There is nothing in his tone of voice that suggests that he's kidding.
And then the tiefling that hasn't introduced herself, she doesn't react.
She's watching you, but hasn't said a word. That let's roll insight on.
Okay. $18.
Not only is she not speaking to you, she seems to have a strange method of breathing. Something about her just seems off. Something about her mannerisms and the way that she looks, acts, even gazes toward you. It all just seems a little bit strange. Something otherworldly, otherplanar about it. She sees you looking at her and meets your gaze, not saying a word.
Sorry, one more question. I can't count. I've noticed that you aren't staying at the temple. Is there something we should know about those accommodations?
I'll tell you what I know about these accommodations. No one in town is very happy about the grand apartments that they have set up for us. We only stay in them when we need to. It attracts a lot of attention going in and out of the temple. I'm only there as a necessity. If you wish to keep a low profile, perhaps you would want to stay at an inn as well.
Do you have a recommendation that's good?
What do I look like? A travel agent?
The next future master of Spy Master of the Zentarum should clearly have an opinion on every tavern in town, right?
Not just that, but the future spy master of the Zentarum knows to never do anything for free.
Do you want a favor?
He scoffs. What's the favor?
She just sort of smiles vapidly at that. Like, oh, I can't imagine. And then she'll look over at Brenner like, hey, do you have anything to add?
Brenner shakes his head, raises up the glass that he's had in hand. Cheers to that.
The ogre looks annoyed that you're drinking in his face. He grumbles a bit.
Brenner does not stop.
You don't stop. The ogre looks down the corner, seeing where is that little Ada, seeming to wait for her to bring him ale.
Oh, let's go check on the kitchens, shall we? And she'll sort of nudge Brenner out of the room. Ultimately returning back, I guess looping back up with Ada, but aiming to come back to the table with the others.
Checking back in at the Temple of the Radiant Heart with Taldred Talton and Walt Forbes.
I believe at this point Taldred is ready to make his way to the tavern.
As you wish, Mr. Talton. One moment. You find yourself just outside. There is a closed door in front of you, Mr. Talton. There is an empty horse paddock to your west. Behind you, there is minimal street traffic. You can still smell a bit of sulfur and smoke on the air.
Taldred heads inside.
Samantha looks over her shoulder at you. You see... Go ahead.
I was going to say Taldred scans the room for Brenner initially.
You see Brenner Oswick. I believe he has just returned to the table. I believe he may be across the table away from the keyboard for a moment.
Oh, yes he is. Okay.
Mr. Talton? You've checked on Mr. Forbes, I take it?
Yes. He's better than I thought he'd be. Of course he is.
Gastmere glances at Samantha to see if, like, her reaction. Does she seem interested in this information?
You get the impression that this is not new information for her, but you're not sure how she would know. Gastmere, you infer that there may be some type of connection there that is not immediately visible to the naked eye. And Brenner, you were being looked for.
Okay, just wait for a sec.
Yeah, Taldred approaches Brenner. He leans in close. I need one of the portal keys, Mr. Forbes. Pleaded that he says this in a very low voice, like whisper, that we give one to Roger Dale the next time we see him.
His hushed tone, but he'll push his head back as if to point to the door behind. He's in there. Had a bit of a chat. Not really fond of the guy.
You are preaching to the choir.
Do you know which key to give him?
He didn't I don't think it matters. Forbes just said give him one.
Brennan has seen the keys. He's handled them. They are two very distinct keys, correct?
Correct. They're different.
I would confer with him for...
Very well.
Gentlemen, maybe we can hold off on that prospect?
Eavesdropping much?
I'm right here.
So Ada's talking out loud, right? And she's like right next to the door where he just said Roger's at.
Imagine she's right next to the bar, right?
Yeah.
Taldred waves Ada closer. What are you on about?
The man seems to be somebody who thinks himself important. It might be advantageous to us if he deigns to grace us with a request.
Look, we only need one key. Mr. Forbes had promised one to Roger and his team. Okay? The man is a fucking moron. And I'd prefer if he had nothing to do with this. But I do not want to start shit with the Radiant Heart. Okay? I don't want there to be friction. We need to avoid this kind of friction. We should all be working together, and that's what I'm aiming for.
That much I agree. I have no problem giving it to him. Just want to know which one. Two different keys, two different portals.
I'll go talk to him.
Do you want me to come with you?
No, that's
There
quite all right.
is a large, uninebriated ogre in there. If you go in without alcohol, he may prove a problem.
Roger's not that bad. And Taldred walks into the room.
Just Taldred by the shoulder as he's leaving the bar. She's not lying. He raises his hand up. Big one.
Taldred he goes in. Okay, so as Taldred enters this room, what does he see?
You see an ogre immediately coming down to put his face next to your face, and he says, "Where my ale?
So,
Little pink bartender,
Taldred,
what you have for me?"
he's as Taldred is like opening the door, he's like, Roger, good lord!
You've seen half ogres, but never an ogre in a situation like this. He's wearing plate mail. It must be truly massive, hundreds of pounds. He looks you eye to eye. Sick of waiting.
You can go outside. I'm here to talk to Roger.
I don't go where you tell me go. You go outside. You go drink out of horse trough. Ha ha ha.
Taldred says, I no go where you tell me go. Okay? No going.
He leans closer to you.
Taldred leans closer to him.
You too little have big opinion.
Taldred looks him, right? He's got the smirk on his face. He's nodding. He goes, nuh-uh.
Little man go, nuh-uh. He does a poor impression of you.
Taldred goes, I don't sound like that.
I don't sound like that. He's not very good at impressions, but it doesn't stop him from trying.
Taldred walks towards Roger.
Roger looks bemused at the entire show of force that you are making.
And so Taldred approaches Roger, and then he sees his tiefling companion. And he says, Roger, listen, good lord.
Taldred,
he walks past Roger.
haven't you seen her before? It scratches at your memory. Isn't she familiar?
Is she? How familiar are we talking here?
It's been years. Hard to place. Do you know?
What color's her skin?
Peach with
Okay.
reddish undertones, looking vaguely infernal, perhaps. Certainly obvious tiefling blood.
Okay. But she looks familiar.
Something about her presence. You feel like you have seen her before.
Taldred approaches her and sits down next to her and says, Hi there, Taldred Talton. Incredibly handsome.
She extends a tiny little hand and shakes yours. Her skin's cold.
Really?
Really. She doesn't say anything. You hear the ogre mumbling to himself over your shoulder. He's talking to himself about ale.
So she doesn't say anything. Taldred's like, a little shy. That's all right. And then he kind of like cranes back towards Roger.
When you say a little shy, she opens up her mouth. She has no tongue. Gastmere. Samantha looks at you across the table. She gestures toward the actions in the side of the room and shakes her head.
Gasner shrugs.
Euros, you find yourself behind the bar. You bump into the proprietor of this establishment. He looks a bit miffed.
Sorry, I didn't.
Do you need something?
Yeah, I wanted to see what was good for the day, and I just didn't want to yell for you. Didn't want to be rude.
I suppose rudeness comes in different quantities. Yes, what do you need?
Do you have a daily stew?
A stew? Not yet. Maybe if you come by later tonight. I could whip something up for you if you're hungry. Like a meat and cheese board, something like that. Something lunchy.
Oh, that would be delicious.
Why don't you stay on that side of things, and I'll bring it right over to you in a moment.
Yeah, sorry. I just like to sniff around.
No problem. He has an easygoing smile, and you sense that you have not transgressed by stepping behind the bar. Here, in the side of the room, Taldr Talton, you're looking over your shoulder at Roger Dale. He looks at you. Ah, the one that got away. It's not...
Flatter yourself.
It's not too late, Mr. Talton.
I agree, Roger. You should come with us.
I prefer a degree of autonomy that you would be unable to grant me. And I doubt your companions would allow me to do what I want to do at the end of all of this.
What exactly do you want to do at the end of all this, Roger?
While you and your companions are almost certain to die in a field or a ditch somewhere, I am going to ascend to the highest and most important throne in the lands. I have greater desires than fighting ghosts or serving ale or whatever it is that you and your companions have chosen to waste your time with.
Roger, what in the hell are you on about?
Mr. Talton, some of us have dreams. Some of us, I suppose, don't. Maybe I was wrong about you.
Taldred is, like, phased by this. Like he's like, what in the fuck is he... He decides he doesn't actually care. So he says, Roger, there are 2 portal keys. Which one do you want?
He raises an eyebrow. What do you have to do with that?
Because I have the keys.
Everything stops for a moment. The tiefling looks at you. The ogre, as well, stops mumbling to himself and looks at you. Roger asks you, what? Did you kill Forbes?
No, he was incapacitated, and I didn't want them on his incapacitated body. Even you can see why that would be a good idea.
Does Forbes know this?
Yes, he asked me to give you one.
Show them to me.
I didn't bring them in here, you dolt.
How do I know this isn't a bluff?
What could... Roger, why do you have to be difficult? Which key do you want?
I want the copper-colored one. I've seen them many times before. In the main room, you see if you're in the main room, you see a familiar figure walk in. It's New Paul Arthrade.
Paul. Brenner raises a glance. Glad to see you're on your feet.
He sees you and nods. I was looking for you, Lot. Thought I might find you here. Samantha refuses to acknowledge him.
Cold.
Am I interrupting something?
No. Please.
Brenner motions towards the stool next to him. More than welcome.
New Paul sits down and faces the table while straddling the stool. I have something for you, or news from Forbes. I suppose this is as good of a place as any to talk about it.
I will point at the guy to his side. What about him?
Him? He looks over, seeing a very common-looking... You would take him to be a farmer, perhaps. He's deep in his cups. Roll insight. Also, nothing gold. Did you shake your head across the table or in character?
Across the table. She's not in the. She's not in the room.
Okay. Where is nothing gold?
She's eavesdropping outside the door.
I see.
12 insight.
You take this to be nothing more than a common drunkard. New Paul looks equally nonplussed. Brenner Oswick, you're right here. Roll insight as well.
11.
You sense nothing but the mundane world. This is nothing, there's nothing different from this from any other tavern you've ever been in. This is nothing more than the background of the world. Seeing multiple people eyeing him up, the commoner, the farmer, this unassuming man shrinks down a little bit and takes another drink of his mug. Paul, go ahead, Ada.
No, go ahead.
Paul offers something up to the group. He says, one of the things that all of us should be doing right now is growing in power. That's the whole point, right? Before we go through the portal. That's my understanding of what you've been charged to do. Is that right?
I'll nod vigorously.
Well, we found something. Something that may interest you. Just south of here, there's a farmhouse just outside the city. I can point it out to you if you have a map. It is said that a great warrior died there, and his possessions are still there, just outside the farmhouse in the swamp. I know a little bit about it, if you have questions or if this is something that interests you. Otherwise, I'd be happy just to give it to Dale.
Why has no one claimed it?
I'll stand right up.
It's, well, the warrior is dead, but he still defends his things. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. A common tomb delving.
It's
I
not,
assume we've all been up to this task before.
not exactly. It's not a tomb. It's just he was felled in the swamps, and it's all out in the open.
And you think directly after an attack, nearly killing all of us, she wandered into the dangerous swamp. A man died? I don't think I've had enough drinks for that one.
If we can't take this ghost of bones and tattered skin on, how are we supposed to take on, well, you know.
My thoughts exactly, my friend.
Right, Ada. I'll tell you, I've taken on a number of sacks of bone and skin. As he stands up and drains the last of the second mug of ale.
I
Samantha,
like having a purpose, and this is a purpose.
Go take another one.
Samantha offers up a comment to no one in particular. That one will be good at getting you killed. Anything he says, I would take with a grain of salt. Him and his ilk have tried to kill me before. Never,
What
put,
do you
Me,
never,
by
ne-
his ilk.
never put your faith in someone like him.
How about we
His-
unpack this feud between the two of you? What exactly is your problem with him?
My problem with him is that him and his countrymen abandoned me. They will abandon you too. If you put your faith in him or anyone like him, they will betray you eventually. His unseeming demeanor is merely a front. Paul,
There are not many Cormyrians I can trust right now.
there's not many true Cormyrians in the world, and he's not one of them.
That's my point.
She narrows her eyes. Ada, roll insight. Gastmere, roll perception.
17.
Ada,
15.
That was a 15, Ridley?
Yeah.
Ada, you notice something important. There's an insignia on Paul's shoulder. It has a prominent 3. Gastmere, you infer that these two have a long history of hatred. This is nothing new. This is not a fresh feud. This is a long and ancient feud. Paul continues, despite the interruption, looking at you, Ada Worthware, who volunteered and said you sought a purpose. Can I tell you what I know?
Please.
As you wish. The farm is owned by an old man. His name's Alan Jordan Hazy. It's south of the city, just across the river in County Lorraine. What we know about the warrior who was killed: it's a dwarf who is well known for his exploits on the Sea of Fallen Stars. The warrior's name was Grint Grommel, and we know that his sword and his armor possess immense power that may be useful for you and your companions. He looks at Samantha. Despite what she may think, I assure you this is no death trap. We always thought that this was merely a legend, but fresh reports have come in suggesting that this is no figurative specter, but rather a literal one. Surely you can defeat the ghost of a dwarf, right?
Well, I certainly hope so.
How did this person happen to perish?
We think that he was run down by ghouls and likely died of exhaustion. But no one was there to witness it. So there's a bit of assumption in there.
Well, we can add ghouls to the list of potential enemies if that is correct.
All ghouls are my enemy.
Your quest log's been updated.
You're touting him up as high and mighty as he's supposed to be. I don't think somebody of his caliber would simply fall to ghouls.
Thank you.
You never know. Even the most experienced warriors can be felled by disease or exhaustion. It's not hard to imagine. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What would he even be trotting out in the swamp to begin with?
We're not sure on the details of something like that or how he got there. But the ghost is said to defend the area quite vigorously. The farmer may have more insight into it, as apparently the ghost has been on his land for years.
Dwarves are always looking for something strong. Maybe he thought the appeal of swamp water would give him a good kick.
Anyone else opposed? Go swamp trudging today?
Don't get me wrong. I don't think this necessarily requires that you do it immediately, but...
No. He holds his hand up as if to motion directly towards Ada. She wants to go. We have to have purpose.
I'll look around me. Oh, I can't do this myself, folks. We can sit here drinking our sorrows away in the bar, or we can do something potentially productive.
Oh, go get Taldred. Brenner leaves the table.
Paul looks around the table as you leave. One other thing. Just to make sure that all loose ends are tied up here, I need to know that your group did in fact give the second key to Roger Dale. And also, I'd like to know that Taldred shared everything that Walt gave to him with the group, because I think that all of you have a right to know what's going on and everything that we know. Did you? He looks around the table, not seeing Taldred. Did Taldred give Roger the key?
He's in there now. I assume that's what he's doing.
Couldn't tell you've been waiting on lunch.
Euros, you have always found that as soon as you say, I'm waiting for X, there it comes, and this is no exception. Michael, the barkeep, comes back and places a charcuterie board here on the table for you and your companions.
Excellent timing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Please enjoy.
I will. Just gonna immediately start going at it.
Taldred,
Yeah.
any further business here with Mr. Dale? Have you are waiting for Brenner, it sounds like. Is that right?
I'm trying to think if they had anything else to talk about. I did remember these guys, finally, from Suzale.
Did you?
Yes, except Roger was a halfling in that edition. No?
Different person. Different person.
Okay, but are the ogre and
Yes.
tiefling?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
but the tiefling, last time I remember, her mouth was sewn shut.
That's exactly right. You wonder,
Okay.
something must have transpired between now and then. But yes,
That's
you
wicked.
your memory comes flooding back to you.
So they used to have the other guy. Okay. That doesn't really change anything, but it's neat to see these guys again. So like I imagine, does Roger have like food laid out?
There is, here on the table, there is, directly in front of him, there is a shrimp cocktail that he has been picking at intermittently.
Yeah, Taldred has also been eating some of that.
He seems unbothered that you've been
I
helping
figured
yourself.
he would. I figured he would, yeah.
We'll walk past Nothing Gold if you let.
Yeah, she'll move out of the way. Looking very nonchalant. Just vibing.
He'll poke his head into the door. Latra.
You
Not Latra, sorry. Taldred. Latra.
Who is Latro?
Taldred.
Brenner, excellent. We were just talking about you. Taldred like waved him in.
Sure, they were great story.
Listen. Would you hand Roger the copper portal key, please?
Colonel rifle through his pockets. Pull out the string. Was it on a ring as well?
I think it was a leather strap.
Just the strap.
That's
He'll just
exactly
pull
right.
the copper key off. Put it on the tape.
You do
Best of
so.
luck. 18. We're going swamp diving as he puts his hand on Taldred's shoulder.
Taldred says, "What?"
The ogre looks extremely vexed at all these people coming in and out, and none of you have ale. Nothing Gold. You see the giant face of a 12-foot tall ogre peering down at you. He is trying to squeeze his way through the doorway.
She'll step aside, just wordlessly.
He stomps over to the bar, pushing you out of the way. Do you allow this?
Yeah.
He chuffs to himself. Tiny green thing, stupid little guys. The barkeep, sensing what is transpiring, immediately brings over several pitchers of ale. Roger takes the key off of the table and smiles at you, Taldred. How interesting. You didn't trust yourself with it, so you gave it to this one? Is that right?
He was just more suited for it.
I thought more of you, but we all make our choices, I suppose.
Taldred stands up. He puts a hand on Roger's shoulder. Says, Roger, don't get yourself killed.
I won't. Don't worry.
Because I'd hate to see you, like, reanimated as a zombie or something. I just couldn't possibly imagine you any dumber than you are right now. So that might break me. He gives him a pat and he walks on.
Look around the crown, bud.
You have to squeeze past the ogre as he is heading back into the room. Brenner, do you yield?
He is much bigger than Brenner. Not entirely imposed, but I let him through the door first.
He laughs about this situation. Stupid tiny guy, stupid little armor. Funny little man.
All right. Brenner has got his hand on Taldred's shoulder as if to push him a little bit more expediently out of the door.
Funny lion helm man. Roar. Ha ha. Funny little man.
Taldred closes the door behind him.
You do so. Samantha and Paul are regarding each other coolly. Paul feels a bit uncomfortable and offers to the group, any other questions? Anything else that I can do for you, or anything you'd like me to pass to Forbes? Have you given the key to Roger?
Yeah, I think we've got all the notches on the board.
And the
Swamp.
the intelligence that you got from Maris, I can tell him that you shared that with everybody on your team.
Taldred is actually approaching the table with that. And he's kind of like gathering everybody around. He is a little bit concerned that there's someone else. So he's a commoner at the bar. Is he just like, does he have his back to us?
He has his back to you. He's wearing blue overalls. He has dirt on his boots. He has short, long, gray hair. Looks like maybe he's in his late 50s. He has a bit of a hunched back. Periodically, he burps.
Okay. Taldred puts... Go ahead.
Under the table, can I send the comment?
Under the table? Sure. Yeah, you can use the message spell as you see fit.
Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of, while I'm eating with one hand, just kind of put my hand underneath the chair and just kind of whisk a message to the commoner.
So, you have to point at the person and say the words out loud.
No, you don't.
I just looked at the spell.
Let us say that you can mouth them. What do you describe your intent? Let's start there. What are you trying to do?
I'm simply just gonna try and send an intrusive thought, like he has something he needs to do at home and he needs to get going. Like, oh, I forgot to put something away at the house. I should get going.
You try to press an intrusive thought into his mind, but not knowing what his obligations may be at home may make this difficult. Roll persuasion at disadvantage. You figure that everybody has certain domestic tasks that they wouldn't want to fall through the cracks. You try to place the thought in his head that he left the stove on. You
He put too much wood on the fireplace.
He scratches the top of his head and looks around a little bit. He seems a bit confused. The thought is intrusive, but he doesn't move. You can tell he's thinking about something. He snorts a bit.
So Taldred lays these 2 pieces of intel on the table and suggests everyone crowd around so that, like, people can't peek in.
New Paul looks a bit uncomfortable as Samantha is staring daggers at him, and he gives a small bow and leaves.
Before you go,
Yes.
I was curious how the Temple of the Radiant Heart is going to deal with what are they again? The fists, the blazes, the Yoros. Who do you work for again?
In between mouthfuls of food. Flaming fists.
Yes, they're supposed to be here soon.
I don't know what you mean by they're supposed to be here soon. What are you talking about?
Yoros?
Yeah, they're on their way, didn't I say?
What do you mean they?
Since when?
This is a massive mercenary organization.
Yeah, since this morning.
He got the message shortly after the explosion occurred.
All of them?
No, just a contingency.
Why exactly are they coming?
The same reason they'd always to impose a position of power.
Taxes.
There we go.
Have you heard of this scam that they run called fire insurance?
I have.
Yeah, and then we set the fires and get the money.
What? Do you do that?
Yeah, sometimes.
How much you make?
No, she looks directly at Samantha and New Paul.
Paul has crossed his arms. I'm not. The Flaming Fist generally operates leagues west of here. The Fist coming here would be significantly outside of their typical zone of control. They trade here, but
I mean, their jurisdiction has been expanding for a while, so if it's along a trade route, I don't see why they wouldn't come down a trade route to control a node.
Ashley is staring at Euros with this expression that says that Euros has transgressed in her eyes.
you maintain a diligent internal list of your personal transgressions, Gastmere, and perhaps you feel that Euros has transgressed against you.
And then while this discussion is happening, like Nothing Gold has sort of like stoked this conversation to happen. I think that she'll lean towards Ada and Gastmere in a quieter voice, so that she's only trying to get two of their attention. Say, I need to talk to you about Maris before we head out.
Maybe we could all talk outside of town, where we know nobody's listening directly.
I would rather prefer that we make a pit stop to take a bath before we head anywhere. In case you've missed, you are covered in blood, and I am somewhat in need of a new shirt.
Well, it's actually better to be a little bit grungy on the road because you're less likely to get approached.
We're going to a bog,
I
a
disapprove of
swamp.
that notion.
I don't know if
prefer
we
to
need
be
to be.
clean.
I don't know if we need to be in our best social presentation manner for going to a bog to kill a dead dwarf.
On the other
How
hand,
dare you?
Are we killing him? Isn't he already dead? Can we talk to him?
Let's find out.
I'm sure one of you can reason with the dead.
What is with this bog? Why are we going to a bog?
Well, apparently there are items of power there, and I feel woefully unprepared for the mission we're about to go on. Maybe some of you martial types can stab something with this dwarf's sword. or not get stabbed with his armor. Either way, drinking at a bar can't be the best thing we can do with our time.
Well,
I'm
we
having a
all
good time.
were just part of a pretty serious attack. I think taking a moment to collect ourselves was completely warranted.
Actually,
Great.
speaking of the attack, this feels like it kind of got brushed under the rug now that I'm thinking about it. Just doesn't feel like anything happened.
Nothing ever will.
What do you mean?
Well, like, there was the explosion, some people were screaming a little bit as far as I could tell. And now the air smells kind of bad, but other than that, everything is... I mean, the foot traffic outside's normal when I walked in.
Well.
Hush and murmurs, but it just seems kind of odd. I mean, back in previous campaigns, you shoot like 3 arrows into a town and everybody's panicking for a week.
Darker times. Sorry, Brenner is obviously making the motion to roll up the paper on the table, assuming that everyone's at least glanced at it, and handing it back to Talder.
Talder will hang on to it.
It was a very concentrated attack.
Yeah, I mean, you have to consider these people were expecting a siege, and they got a little puff of smoke. They're probably relieved.
Well, I don't think the general populace knew about the attack in the slightest, but
Alright, look. Regardless if whatever scale of attack one was expecting, an attack happened nonetheless. From an assailant that probably wasn't assumed to be the assailant. Regardless, an attack still happened, and life goes on normally, and it seems out of place.
What seems
No.
out of place is the fact that the attack was expected by one person who had a vision. Yet nothing happened. Where did this vision come from?
Could have made it up, who knows?
Perhaps.
I mean, I could make up a thing now that says I have a vision that more ale's gonna come down from the kitchen any minute now.
Talder looks toward the kitchen.
let's not speak ill of the dead, please.
We all clearly have a lot to talk about. Maybe we should organize this so we can complete each topic.
On the road. Yes.
I would prefer to loop up this particular loose thread before we even leave Little Avernus. There's a half-life on information.
And the information in this scroll that Talder just showed us is troubling.
Yes.
So where should we go and what should we do?
You can take the empty room next door if you want.
I don't think any room is empty in this town.
Well, we could go back to the temple, then. You all could talk about it. I could have a bath.
Ah, creature comforts. Yes, let's go back to the temple.
Talder's like brushing stuff out of his hair. Like there's like a piece of bone. He's like,
Do you, as an orderly group, return to the Temple of the Radiant Heart? Does anyone... Don't take this as me trying to beg the question. Any actions on the way? Anything further? Go ahead.
I'm gonna stay behind and finish my lunch.
You don't want to bring it with you? Wrap it up?
No, it's on a board. I can't take a charcuterie board to go.
You may...
I'll make you a
and
new
then I
one.
feel bad for taking his board.
Have a great lunch.
I
Finish my ale.
would prefer not to leave one of us alone.
Just come with us, Euros.
The board.
Euros.
Fine. Just gonna shove as much stuff in my mouth as I can.
You take a big hunk of smoked duck and jam it into your mouth. Just as you're about to stand up, you grab a chunk of provolone cheese to accompany it. You feel sated. Is the party leaving this zone?
Yeah. As we're leaving, 2 questions. Is Newpal and Samantha coming with us? Are they staying behind?
Paul has been trying to exit the entire time you've been talking. You sense that he really does not want to be in the same room as Samantha. Samantha seems perfectly happy just to drink. She wanted to come here in the first place to have an ale. So, barring you dragging her along, you sense that she might stay here. She hasn't made any indication otherwise. She's been drinking quietly and just listening.
Good. So as we are leaving, Brenner will try to make motion to pull Ada behind as they're exiting Torp. He will hand her a scroll, mumble something along the lines of, "This isn't mine. I found it, but I think you're the only one that would understand."
Can I find it on your character sheet?
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna move it over to your, if she takes. If I can find my tab. I'm having technical difficulty.
I can resolve them for you if necessary.
I've read it. Don't worry about the technical difficulties.
Sounds good.
I will tuck it into my satchel,
I got it open.
and I will nod so as not to draw too much attention.
There's a reason I wanted to leave.
You make your way to the temple safe house, and let's take our 5-er. Sound
Sounds
good?
Yes.
Okay, see you guys in a bit. Hello.
Well.
You know what's awesome about Captain Crunch?
It cuts the roof of your mouth.
Well, yeah, but even if it goes stale, it still cuts the roof of your mouth.
It's true.
I don't even remember the last time I had cereal. Are you just like eating cereal? Just like, yes, I see.
Yeah.
It's too. Dry out of the box, yeah.
That looks like a huge bowl of cereal, too.
Not that big. Just a bowl.
Huge.
I mean, it's got coconut milk, so maybe it just makes it float more.
So across the table, this is a difference.
Correct. Speaking as someone named Michael in real life, it is a extremely common name.
Coming from someone named David in real life. Same. We have two. Admittedly, I wasn't sure because we had quite a few recurring cast members.
Totally. No, great question.
Across the table. Oh, I can do it myself. I think I did this by accident earlier. My character tab was in front of the party and I lost it, which is one of my problems earlier.
Sorry for some of the manifest technical issues. Hopefully it's not too bad.
It seems totally fine. Which is like a bit of an... I'm not really good with Google Doc.
I am so sick of Google Docs. Not like for using your campaign, but because one of my contracts I had to work on, all we used was Google Docs. And I don't want to work with Google Docs for a while. I got really good at coding in formulas with Google Docs.
I mean, I've seen some of your Google Docs handiwork before, and yes, you are extremely good with Google Docs.
Docs wizard, if you...
Yeah.
In the hopefully faded future of a fourth campaign, should have like... Remember back in the day on the internet where you had like ASCII art, bad pages where you'd have to look up guides to things?
Yeah.
Of course, yes.
Like game fact guides.
Yeah. Should have that for the inventory log. Just one shitty text dump.
I have made ASCII art somewhat recently.
Not really.
I mean, this is a true pointless callback, but the Zolgarub guide that I wrote has original ASCII art of mine in it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
When I was a kid, I wrote for a e-zine, and one of the things I did was all of my own ASCII art for all of my own articles.
It's truly a dying skill.
It really is. I have ASCII art hidden in the tool I made for Word. So if you give commands that aren't in like the, I guess like the README or anything like that, you can only find it by running the tool at an error and getting like an error-ridden version of the help me out. And if you put in a command, it just prints out ASCII art for like Easter eggs and shit. It's fun.
I just turned on my fan. Can you hear it?
Nope.
Sick. I don't know what it is about specifically D&D nights, but it gets up to like 90 degrees in my room.
So when I'm role-playing, I also get hot and bothered.
Oh yeah.
For whatever reason, D&D is extremely anxiety-inducing for me, and I usually am very sweaty after every game. Probably information that you don't need, but now you have it anyway.
We're all dank.
That's say D&D is anxiety-inducing for me, but I think life in general is anxiety-inducing for me. So
yeah.
Big true.
I think
I
you're
got-
you're in good company, Ridley.
Especially during the first couple of campaigns, it was real rough for me, but I feel comfortable with the ball.
I think I've become a little bit more comfortable writing stuff that's not quite so dismal as well, or at least is dismal in a more focused way.
I liked your ogre.
Thank you. I really I'm still kind of losing my voice, and I have like these voice notes I'm just not hitting. Like Samantha has a voice, and it's just I really can't do it very well right now.
It's
Ogre
understandable.
kind of reminded me of a regular customer who used to have at GameStop.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So far, Ogre is the only NPC I haven't wanted to kill.
Oh no, dude, he's spitting facts.
You want to kill the tiefling? The mute tiefling?
Okay, maybe not.
What about new Paul? He's the newest one.
Yeah, but then we get new Paul.
I'm a Paul Classic fan, alright? I know, it's controversial, but I said it.
You're the one responsible for his death.
Oh, you're
What?
a vanilla Paul?
Am I? Wait, what?
Do you remember Paul from our last campaign?
Clearly not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. Little shit.
Not the same Paul, but yes, you did kill Paul
Old
McMill.
Paul.
Wait, what was it? Mac Mill?
Paul McMill, that's right. I knew if you accessed your memory, you would remember some of these characters. By the way, I really enjoy it when there's no roll for it or whatever. You just really have to rack your brain for something we talked about 3 years ago or whatever.
Just think about it, it's that easy.
That sound Jesus Christ. I just have a really hard time with names. But it's Tyrion familiar.
While we're waiting for Dave, do you want to perhaps we can resolve some non-Dave things? Because I think there was a handing off of Brenner's note to Dave, but while that is going on, are there other parallel conversations people want to have? Or maybe we want to wait because this will probably be pretty impactful. So let's keep waiting.
I'm just gonna be eating, man. Like, Yoris is always on the road, and like, when he can get real food, he is all over it.
Yeah, Taldra loaded up on shrimp. On Roger's dime.
Like, where does your shrimp?
Hanging out at the bar counts as a short rest, by the way.
Here comes David.
Hanging out at the bar counts as a short rest. I think you guys are there for an hour. That I would agree. I think that sounds legitimate to me, Ridley.
Oh, should we roll hit dice then? Is that a thing?
Yeah, because
Yeah, I think that's an excellent observation. Yeah.
Okay, fuck it.
I just noticed that I'm missing a bunch of hit points. Weirdly, it's as if I've been in an explosion.
As if you were tossed from a battlement.
Now I just need to figure out how many hit dice I have.
Considering all that, actually, I'm missing surprisingly few hit points, but still, I'd like to have more of them. What the fuck is my hit dice? Is it a D12?
Barbarians are D12.
Oh my gosh,
pretty sure
that is the
cleric
one
is
die
D12.
I never have.
Clerics D8.
Yeah, cleric's D8.
D8?
Yeah,
Okay,
just
thank
roll
you.
a D8 and a D4.
Fighter and ranger are D10. Barbarian D12. Everybody D8 or below.
Okay.
Have these are somebody else's made dice, but I have these really funky rhombic.
Oh, it looks like
Come on, camera.
it almost looks like US dollar type script on that die. I like that a lot. That's cool. That's an awesome 8.
Is it purple? Or is it just your lighting?
It's kind of my lighting. It does have purple like flakes inside it, so some of those will reflect. But it's mostly brown, and then it's got some gold foil, and then it kind of reflects purple.
Is that
threads from some angles?
Is that your character dice of choice for Gastamir, or just today you're feeling its vibes today?
It's just what I happen to have at hand. Like, I literally only have these D12s because I don't usually roll them. Like, nobody rolls D12, so I only have 3 of them. but I've got about 20 d6s.
Ever
If
since
I play a rogue.
that makes sense. I play a rogue and a bard in another campaign, and I roll a lot of d6s.
All my dice have little penguins in them.
I used to use Wizards used to have this really good dice roller, and they like randomly got rid of it about 6 months ago. So now I'm using some horrible website that has all these gambling ads all over it. But it lets me. But it's good with what I need is something that I can like quickly use my keyboard to control. And the price of that is like we currently have the Lucky Lottery numbers banner ad. It's like I feel AdBlock doesn't catch us for whatever reason. I'm using AdBlock in Chrome, but it doesn't catch everything.
I have 6 of these boxes strewn around this room.
My God, the dice singularity.
My brother used to work at a comic book store, and we
Sure.
would get in bulk dice. And it was just like a decade of accumulating bulk dice that nobody wanted, because you could just, at that point, we just took them. And we have this like massive glass pumpkin that's just full of them.
It was like a frivolity from my childhood. I wish I had a lot of dice, and every time I go to the conventions, I go to the Chessex booth and get a picture of dice.
I don't have dice on hand, but in case you need creepy fortunes, I have my tarot deck right here.
Do you?
I got Legos of Pokemon.
I have like 3 or 4 tarot decks laying around, and I don't know where they are.
Yeah, I just keep weird novelties on my list.
There's just amiibos and Tachikomo from fucking Ghost in the Shell on my desk.
That's awesome.
Is that the Nendroid one?
I don't remember which company made this. The box is over there. But no, it is not.
Didn't Figma make one too?
I think so, yeah, but I think this is the Bandai one.
Do you say Ligma?
Yeah.
David, welcome
Parties
back.
reconvene.
Yes, the party's reconvened. David, welcome back. We find ourselves, you have traveled through a abandoned, relatively Temple of the Radiant Heart. You've never seen less people here. You stride across a prominent bloodstain in the foyer on your way to your safe house here inside of the temple. You arrive.
I was curious about something else, which I don't know if she could ascertain about the crowd, but why is it that nobody thinks of the Temple of the Radiant Heart as like a safe place to come to during a crisis?
That is an excellent question, and one that you can infer. These doors are not open to just about everybody, and Arabel is a relatively impoverished city, and people would feel far more welcome, for example, in the Temple of Sirik, which attracts worshippers of all types and would be more willing, perhaps, to provide charity to the downtrodden among us than the Temple of the Radiant Heart, which has a bit of a ivory tower type feel amongst the locals.
Is that because of the association with Helm himself, or just the history of this specific temple?
Probably both. I would say Helm tends to not be worshipped by very many common people. People pray for a lot of things, but the Watcher is not necessarily known for his conveyance of common miracles. If you're praying for a good harvest, you're praying for someone to recover from sickness. Helm is very removed from all of that. And also, yes, this temple in particular, the way that John Smithfield has run it was certainly out of sync with the wants, desires, and what would you call it? Like the social mores of the people who live in Arabel.
Do you express these concerns about the Temple of Helm out loud?
Yeah, I think so. I think, especially because earlier she was trying to defend the temple so that it could be safe for people to run to. I think that she'll see the lack of people in the street and express something like, I did not realize that this was a rich person's temple, essentially.
Helm has not been a popular god with the common folk since before the Spell Plague, and especially including the Spell Plague. Many think That Helm either stood aside while Mistra was killed or killed her himself out of misguided sense of duty.
Duty.
The tail end of that, I would tend to disagree with.
With who?
I don't think Helm of all higher beings slew Mistra.
I don't either, but I also don't blame the common folk. Where's Helm right now? Where's the Eternal Guardian? Who's watching the common folk? I think the real answer is nobody. And the Helm might strut around as if our safety is owed to them.
It's just effectively what I've been saying since we got it. That much I agree with.
Whatever your thoughts are on the Spell Plague, Helm, and Mistra, you can't be thrilled with the Helmites right now.
What
Nope.
brought you all here, then? To ally yourself with this temple?
It gives me an. I've said
We
it
have
before.
many options.
I agree, Gasmir. We don't have many options. Our other option is that scoundrel in the bar. I think the Helmites are preferable.
Amen.
Scoundrel in the bar. Can we discuss that?
Oh, you didn't see him.
No, I did not.
Well, I didn't have a lot of dealings with him, and it looked like nothing gold. You had your ear pressed to that wooden door as if you would merge with it.
Don't
Maybe-
try it like wood anyway.
Maybe you can express to us what happened with that man. Roger Dale, I think was his name.
Well, Roger Dale's reputation precedes him. In that way, you generally don't want to be recognized, if that makes sense.
He's a criminal.
Yes.
Honestly,
Dipshit.
do I recognize this name? Does this sound familiar in any way?
Say that one more time. I was looking at a chart.
Does Gasmir recognize his name? Does this sound familiar?
If you would know, if Gasmir would be aware of the scoundrels of the world, and I think maybe she would, Roger Dale has a well-deserved reputation as someone who has robbed banks and someone who has been called upon to crack safes that were regarded uncrackable. He is someone with a generally negative reputation amongst the civilized folk in the world. I get the impression that Gasmir's family would probably have a relatively negative opinion of someone like him, but certainly Lissa herself can come to her own conclusions. I think perhaps in a as a roundabout way of answering your question, I think yes, you would be aware of him at the very least.
So, two things were interesting about that conversation. I didn't realize that, although this makes sense, of course, now, that this temple is funding another team in addition to us. Taldred Talton, it seemed you were approached by this man at some point.
I know, Roger.
How?
You mentioned at some point that you were being used by the Zentarum. I imagine.
No, that's not when I met him. Look, when I was a courier for the Zentarum for 2 whole weeks, it was way before this shit. It was way before Cormyr fell. Okay, they weren't what they are now. Okay, they were a bunch of fucking schmucks. I was just trying to make some easy money. Okay, and then everything went to shit so fast. But Roger, he just we've been when you're trying to get with other people of certain statuses and interests, you end up in certain circles. Roger has been in some of those, even though he was well, here's what I'll say about Roger is that ogre was the second dumbest person in that room. Okay, he's a idiot savant. It's true. He is a master at safes, but he is narrow-minded and he's an asshole. And I am insulted that Forbes gives him and his team the time of day, the same reverence that they give our team. All right, it's maddening.
I think actually it could be useful for us. His apparent intended goal is to take over the Zentarum after
He-
the death of Tyranny Fang.
He what?
Really?
What he said.
Roger, Taldred like falls to the floor and is grasping his sides. He's laughing so fucking hard.
Spy masters often trumpet their intention to be a spy master. Is that correct?
Well, according to the stories about how Tyranny Fang got the position, what he's doing now is actually not too dissimilar.
You
But how it
believe
works-
stories spun by a man trying to preserve his image?
What is it, like regicide? You just kill the leader, you become the leader? Like a
Is
chieftain?
Tyranny Fang an ogre?
At the very least, more bodies in that keep when we're there. Probably for the best. If you don't like him, great, he's a distraction.
I'm worried that Roger Dale and his band of misfits rushes into Zental Keep, fails gloriously, and then they increase security because they know there's a flaw. In their
Taldred
impregnable
stands
wall.
up like wheezing, and he's like, I agree. It's an issue. They might jump the gun. They could fuck this up royally. That's what I suggested to Mr. Forbes, but it got me nowhere.
Well,
The
let
only thing I see happening is when the fists get here is just detaining him.
Right, about that. Did you
No.
not think it prudent to just mention the fact that or at least a small contingent of the Flaming Fists were coming?
Thought I did.
No,
Yeah, they're on their way.
thanks.
What? Are the
Right.
fists going to occupy the governmental body of this city?
I received a message that they're on their way. I don't see how this is a bad thing.
I'm asking for an opinion.
Probably.
I don't know. I kind of agree that more security would be good at this time.
Thank you. I don't. This is such.
well, here's the problem.
How is there a problem?
We need information. Maris is our only intermediary, and I'm still not sure that the information she's giving us can be trusted. The Flames' presence here is essentially going to flush out. We are no longer going to see other people on the street with whom we could make connections. Does that make sense? The Zentarum agents say in the marketplace, who could have been our only other lead in, not only to the Zentarum as an information network, but to the Fae, the people who are now empowering Tyranny Fang, as far as I understand. I have no doubt that the fists or the blades or whoever the fuck are simply going to tell him to get lost, just as you did, Yoros.
Wait, what did Euros do?
Hold.
He threatened him to
Who's that?
try to... The Zentarum merchant that I was just speaking of.
There's a Zentarum merchant.
Why
Yeah,
are we
he's
threatening-
dealing it. He's peddling black market goods, and I put him in his place.
Yes, how
You put him in the
powerful.
ground.
I wanted to.
So where's his
Let-
place?
Well, let
Where
me
is he?
ask
In
you
the
this:
market.
is if you think of him as a resource, is burning him for a single sword really the exchange you want to make?
Oh,
Is that the best
absolutely.
use? No, it's
Yes.
not. No,
Have you
it's
ever
not.
tried to beat the Zentarum at their own game?
What do you think I'm trying to do?
I can tell you that that's not.
What game?
I have, okay?
You show up.
They're at their own game. Intelligence, counterintelligence, subtlety.
Here's the thing. Obviously, I've been in many Sono Truths in my time. I meant it when I said I'm not working for the Zentarum, but you can imagine by now that Tyranny Fang has many enemies and that there are many people interested in replacing him. So, in that vein, there are people within the Zentarum who know much more than we do, who can help us as long as we share the same goal,
The same goal being what?
to kill Tyranny Fang.
Why would the Zentarum want to kill Tyranny Fang?
It's Let me ask you this. When you speak of the Zentarum, are you imagining just one singular shade of black? Do you think they all think the same? Do you think they all share the same? Okay, they're not. There
would you know?
are... Because I'm working with an agent of the Zentarum.
What's
You
the agent's
what?
name?
You just
I can't
said
tell you.
weren't.
Why
I
can't you
never
tell
said
us?
that.
You said I'm not working for the Zentarum.
I said I'm not working for the Zentarum. I cannot tell you what their name is because I would be placing them in danger.
I think you're placing us in danger. Are you not?
Look. The Zentarum have obviously been flagged as the enemy, right? Yes. Are you not fraternizing with...
The
enemy?
Zentarum or Tierney Fang? Because I don't
Yes.
think we necessarily agree on what our target is.
Don't we?
Tierney Fang.
What do you know that you're not telling us?
This is what happens.
I am
when
trying to
go
tell
rogue
you.
and you don't follow orders.
Euros, give her a moment to talk.
Fine.
Please continue. What are you trying to tell us?
I am trying to tell you that I need the information from Maris to establish a better network through which we can actually trust the intelligence coming to us. Otherwise, as Samantha Ruthenberg pointed out, we're simply going to be continuing to play into their hand. Any information that I try to pass through Maris, which includes questions like, can Maris be trusted, will be intercepted, will be read, maybe modified before it comes back to us. And we could go into this blind, but I don't think you want to. Do you
That's-
really
said that-
expect to get close to Tierney Fang without the Zentarum's help? Do you want to take on the entirety of the Zentarum, or do you want to be a dagger aimed for a single heart?
We'll
So,
be teleporting straight into Zenthal Keep,
Yes.
regardless. We'll be going in blind because we will have no idea what's on the other
We
side of
don't
that
have to
portal.
be going in blind.
That would be assuming we could get reliable information, which just doesn't happen when you.
Which I am
deal with
trying
the
to do.
Zentarum. Taldred is flustered at this point.
If I had my way, we'd just march in there and take them all out.
and we die for.
There's worse
You're
things
not
to
wrong.
do.
If their goal is explicitly kill Tierney Fang, period, full stop. What's our plan afterward?
Taldred holds up the piece of paper. He says, "Why would they want to kill Tyranny Fang, assuming any of this intelligence is actionable?"
You were in the army, right, Talbot? Soldier man?
No. I've been in several groups of adventurers that
They're obviously using her.
Let me ask you this. You worked for the were used by the Zentarum some time ago. It has changed since Tierney Fang has come to power, no?
they've changed a lot over the years, period.
Do you think that there is a world in which people don't agree with the methods that Tierney Fang now uses? That people don't agree with the gods or the allies that he has made?
You believe there are people within the Black Network that want to overthrow tyranny, but I can tell you that while it's true that killing tyranny would be quite a blow to the Zentarum, I do not want to trade one world of monsters for another world of monsters.
Y'all
Well,
know
this
this.
Talbot. You kill one, someone's gonna fill the void.
Nothing gold. What do you want to do relating to Tierney Fang, the Zentarum, and Zental Keep? What
I
is
want to
your game?
I want to kill Tierney Fang.
Why specifically Tierney Fang? I think for us, Tierney Fang is a face to the force that is the Zentarum.
He is directly responsible for the death of someone that I cared about. And she's saying her words very carefully, but it's not in a I'm lying, it's more as in a like I don't know how to talk about this sort of way. You can see that she's struggling emotionally.
Do you harbor a grudge? That much is clear. I have a question as well. Say we killed Tierney Fang. Our mission is successful. This follows through with Taldred. Does your friend wear the crown afterwards? Do you?
The nature of the relationship that I have with this friend is that I don't have a say with what they do afterwards. However, in my grandest design, the entirety of Zental Keep would go up in flames.
Now that I can agree with.
Culture,
However,
can you present the papers?
Yeah, Taldra will do so. He'll lay them out on the, we have a little table, yeah, little table there.
Just so we have reference. Sorry, go on, nothing.
Why can't we just simply get 100 wizards and fireball the keep?
I assure you that won't work.
Where would you find 100 wizards?
I don't know.
We have probably the 2 in all of it. We're in Arabel, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't want to misspeak. I get names mixed up. We probably have the 2 in all of Arabel in this room right now.
And I promise you, based on what's on this piece of paper, that wouldn't work.
I'll admit I really haven't read much onto it.
Elaborate.
It looks like they're trying to control the Shadow Weave. Previously, magic was delivered to this realm through a medium called the Weave, an ever-permeating invisible force, a conduit from the Overfather through the gods to this realm that mortals would draw from when they casted spells. When, I would point at Taldred, clerics would pray. They would pray through the Weave and get boons from their deities through the Weave. There's an alternate force governed by Shar, the goddess of darkness, called the Shadow Weave.
Taldred spits.
Thank you, Taldred. They seek to not only introduce the Shadow Weave to this world, but control the conduit through which it comes to this world. Since the Shadow Weave is not natural to this world, they would have prominence over that. It implies that they've already dabbled in this. If there are any wizards, casters, mages, sorcerers in this world, they've already struck a dark bargain to try and find power from somewhere. It's not the Weave. It's all the Shadow Weave, the Demon Weave, some other alternative method, the Seldarine. We're only sniffing at motes of power while they hold the reins. If you believe this message to be true, they're looking for a permanent way to control the Shadow Weave as a means to control this world.
Is
So
that
Tierney
what
Fang-
they're saying?
That's what I'm reading into this.
Ada,
And they need something.
You know more about this than I will ever. What Taldred reads the piece of paper more. What they seem to be doing, they seem to be trying to create something entirely different. This seems like they're trying to create something greater than the Weave.
I think they think it's greater. I think they're dabbling in powers greater than them, but nobody else is
yes.
dabbling. They're the
Where-
only ones dabbling.
weren't we told at some point that Mistra may not be as dead as we thought?
I hope that's the case.
I believe that is who they refer to. I believe she is the her in this correspondence.
I hope it's her.
Ada, what would be the ramifications if they actually succeeded?
If they were able to find the corpse of Mistra, and in a way reanimate Mistra,
I'm talking about what if they created a Weave greater than all others?
well, you would have no need for a government, or no need for privacy, or no need for this room. You wouldn't be able to contact the Seldarine. It would be the worst possible thing for every single person in this world who is not exactly the Zentarum. And it is my belief that the Zentarum would not be able to harness those forces properly. This would
That-
be far worse than the Spell Plague.
Do you believe then that that is exactly what Smithfield's vision was showing him? An apocalyptic use of this Weave?
That's my fear. And Tyranny Fang is not where I'd stop. I'd stop at whatever's trying to harness the Shadow Weave and cut it off at the neck. From
I'm
what I
out of my
understand,
depth.
Tyranny cannot be the only great mystic involved in this process. There have to be great mystics from Thay, from Chult. There have to be the greatest wizarding minds left in this world. If we kill Tyranny, I don't know if it'll stop this process.
Well, let me ask you this. When you went to Maris originally, you were asking about exactly how to do that, how to kill Tierney Fane. Did you
That's
get
right.
that information?
She implied that he was a lich, which means we'd have to find his phylactery.
This lines up with what I understand.
Also, we were told this on the first day, if you recall, by Walter
Forbes
Forbes.
said he had dealings with liches. What does that imply?
Do you mean Tierney had dealings with witches, or he had...
Yes. No, I'm sorry. Tyranny had struck deals with liches.
It's common practice. You want to live forever, you resort to necromancy.
But did he make himself a lich?
There are 3 great mage kingdoms in this world. I assume he was talking about alliance with one of them. Regardless, we're far down the ladder from this issue. I just wanted to bring the group into my understanding, my fears of what we're going into.
So here is my request. I would like to go back to Maris to complete the information gathering. I would be willing to send someone else disguised as me if you would prefer that. And it might be preferable because that person will know absolutely nothing about what I was originally trying to find out.
Let me offer. When I was partially blinded by that banshee in the cavern, I saw Siric's face, and there's no way I could have seen his face if the Shadow Weave wasn't already active. If you show up there with any sort of disguise in Siric's own house, he will see right through it.
Would it be worth validating that? Do you know this for certain?
I know it. And he can pierce shadow and anything relating to subterfuge. If you do anything of this magnitude, be very careful about the deception that you apply.
This is my point entirely. Trying to beat them at their own game. I don't see a point. I like Paul's suggestion that we try to
Overpower them. Overpower the Zentarum?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't
If you
think
corner the Zentarum,
we have
they are
27
all-
days to put
Yes.
something together.
That's correct. And hit them as hard as we possibly can. This is something that I've done in the past. It honestly is very effective. Every time I joined a group, every time we tried to beat them at their own game, a lot of people died.
I think you would expect the same outcome with trying to gather an army to approach the Zentarum Keep. But fine, if that is your plan, then why are we wasting our time going after singular swords? Why aren't we trying to create an alliance with the elves to the north of us or to other kingdoms? Surely all of you are positioned very well to do that.
To be clear, I didn't really want to go to the swamp, I wanted to exit. I felt that we had eyes prying on more sensitive information than it
Fair.
seemed.
Gasmir, Yoros, you've been slightly quiet during this conversation. I'd like to know where both of you stand.
Well, Aldred told me to be quiet.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to hear what she had to say. I apologize.
How
Rose.
obedient you are.
While being polite.
Well, I believe we shouldn't be quick to discard men like Mr. Dale, who could still be of use. He doesn't have to agree. to being of use to us, but we can still use him.
About as well as you could use a busted cart.
He could provide a distraction if we make the assault at the same time. And if he is the blundering fool that you seem to believe him to be, then he will inevitably draw attention to himself.
Why don't you just nail bells to his boots at that point?
I'm sure
Take
he'll
it.
manage on his own.
If we're to take Taldred's word on it, that much I can agree with.
And
You're
I do
closer.
believe we should be attempting to better ourselves. So if there is some benefit to taking items from the dead, then we should do it.
I say we need to consolidate as much power as we can in one group.
Yes, and power doesn't necessarily mean an army, nothing gold.
Well, yes, we don't want to make ourselves too much of a target. Mr. Smithfield saw what happened when you do that.
In either case, you said we had until the end of the month. I don't think that
the
to be
end
as
of
true as you think.
Fall, I think he said.
I think if you check the dates on this correspondence as to when they think their project is going to be finished, it lines up pretty well with what the prophet said regarding his visions.
I really don't care if his visions were true or not. What I'm stating is, say there are more forces outside, as you seem to be aware of, that are going to influence how this mission takes hold. Say the Fists send an entire contingent here. Wrest control. What are we to do? Are they going to send themselves into Zental Keep? I doubt that we're going to have as much of a free reign as we think. Outside of that, we also have a giant flying boat with dragons, which are supposed to meet in 3 days, 4? I think
They'll-
we're a little bit more pressed on time than you think.
They will find us no matter where we go, I assume.
I would assume as much.
Yes, I have the other half of the mithril that they wanted.
You what?
It's downstairs.
What?
It's downstairs.
We're downstairs, by the way.
We
It's
are
upstairs.
downstairs.
Sorry,
Yeah,
upstairs.
it comes
Yeah.
down, yeah.
I'm imagining some like loft, but
Why would you do that? They could have killed us.
they didn't. You had it in hand. If it seemed like you were going to be killed, of course I would have come out with the rest of it.
Damn, Taldred falls for that hook, line, and sinker. Yeah, I did have it. Fair enough.
Why don't you give the ore to Taldred? It's his neck
I
on
don't
the line.
want to carry that.
You know, you are the name that they know. They will hook their astral hooks into you and find you. I don't have to answer for this.
Listen, you're thinking of this as a threat, but I'm thinking of it more as an opportunity. We know at this
Mhm.
point that they are in the pocket of the Zentarum. We now have the opportunity to win them over to our side somehow, perhaps.
There's no way that they're in the pocket of the Zentarum.
We
You
know
said
that they're
they were
allied
aligned
in
with Shar.
we know that they're with the Black Dawn, which at this point we can tie directly to the Zentarum.
They're from the astral plane. They care as much about the politics of Faerun as ants care about the politics of Faerun.
Did you see the name of the ship they were riding?
I didn't know.
No.
A little too distracted with the dragons.
What was it? Nothing gold.
I'm now doubting my own notes out of character, but I could have
No,
sworn
it's
it was...
perfect. It's perfect. Unreliable narrator. It's perfect. Please give it to me.
She just says it was called the Black Dawn.
Oh, shit.
Fuck.
That's
Okay.
Spelljammer. And they are using the mithril to craft something that I believe I could use for our own means. That ring that woman yielded was made out of mithril. It's one of the strongest materials out there.
I'm gonna pull out the second document. That's basically the schematics life core support system.
What do you make of that, Ada?
I'm gonna jab my finger on the paper. Mithril. Interplanar. This is a material that is renowned for being interplanar medium.
What does that mean?
That means that there are different metals in the astral plane. The entire plane is surrounded by phlogiston, which never mind. Yeah, the cosmology of it. Mithril is a commonality between Faerun and these other planes. I don't know exactly what they're planning. I'm kind of interested. I don't know exactly what they're planning, but Mithril may be involved in this.
Are these correspondences dated?
They're not.
Damn. Okay.
They are not.
Do you think this device is completed?
No, absolutely not.
No, it's in progress, absolutely.
And
That we-
What if we destroyed this thing?
what if we did one better?
I'm listening.
What if we got something that looked and appeared like mithril, but wasn't actually mithril?
Sabotage.
Bull's mithril?
Yes, fool's mithril. I think we can sabotage this plan in the front side. I don't know if the Githyanki would fall for this, and I'm no expert. We'd have to talk to one of the miners that came back, I think.
The point is, this is being built in Suzale, is it not?
I mean, they flew in between the planes. They could go anywhere they wanted. It's probably being built extraplanarly.
In either case, we don't have the time to go to Cizale unless we have a third portal key that drops us in the middle of.
Or unless we had friends with a spelljammer.
We do.
Do you think we could decrew that thing?
No.
And do you think that they would let 4 miners aboard?
I am hoping somebody can try and make us a duplicate. I don't know if it's even possible. It's an option, though.
Do you not want to be friends with Githyanki? Is that what's happening?
Nobody's
I
friends
certainly
with the
don't.
Githyanki.
I'll admit I'm not particularly familiar, but anyone who rides on dragons tend not to be the nicest cop.
I don't think we're going to accomplish what we want to accomplish with the nicest of people.
I am suggesting we give them a fake, and they deliver it to the Zentarum. The Zentarum think it's real, melt it down as the alloy.
Taldred holds up a finger. He says, "No, I don't think so. When we gave it to them, they looked it over. I suspect they can probably tell. There has to be a way to tell."
That's probably right. It was just an idea, though.
I like it.
I
Is
like
there
where
the
your
worst
head's at. Yeah.
Say this much then. I know at least on your end, Ada, you want to bring back the weave, correct?
Yeah, and I do want to prevent the Shadow Weave. That was
They
an
have-
option to me that I declined.
I am not learned in the ways of the arcane, but you say they have a contraption that can force the Shadow Weave to dominate this plane, correct?
Or so they think.
Something so strong. Bend reality?
Imagine if they are the only ones who can cast spells.
Exactly. This is obviously an artifact of extreme magical power.
Yeah, far beyond my understanding.
If Shadow was the option you declined, what was the option you accepted?
And she'll hold up her book and put it away quickly. I'm not proud of it.
Seemed like a bad
Why
deal.
not? What's wrong with it?
What's wrong with it? It doesn't speak to Mistra. It speaks to Zariel.
Oh, see? Who the fuck is Zariel? Do I have any
Zariel?
idea?
Is one of the devil princes. She runs Avernus. Devils and demons. There are 2 primordial forces of evil. Devils are lawful evil. Demons are chaotic evil. They're forced into an eternal conflict, and that conflict strikes a balance in the cosmology of this universe. Zariel is one of the great leaders of the Devil, the lawful faction.
Thank
Everyone
you for
would
the
know this.
lesson, teacher, Gastmir says in Abyssal.
I will respond in Abyssal. You're welcome.
So what I'm getting at, despite my newfound understanding, our politician is made a deal with the devil all the same. They have an artifact with the power to warp the Shadow Weave into existence.
I don't think they have it yet. I think they're making it. And
Right,
they're
so
lacking some components.
Let's make them make it. Let that happen. Clearly I can't do that. And we use it for other means. Does that sound reasonable? Is that an option?
I don't know enough about it. Sounds a little dangerous.
That's an interesting opinion, Mr. Oh, as the player forgets your character's last name.
Brenner.
Mr. Oswig.
One to miss the weave. But I would be remiss to say that there are others that benefited it from it greatly. We don't have the medicines to clear plague. And I'll admit that I miss when across the battlefield there was a wizard throwing fireballs, and not one laden with bombs.
Perhaps we wish to have more information of this replacement, then.
I assume this device is attuned to the Shadow Weave. If that's the case, its only use to us is being destroyed.
Does this document make any mention of the Shadow Weave specifically, though?
A rather unique opportunity to create something that exceeds our wildest expectations.
I tell you, I think
To
they're
produce a
trying to-
weave according to our specifications, rather than her own, her being Mistra.
And that weave
Exactly.
could be in any flavor you choose. It could be a lemon weave.
Let me ask you, Ada, what if Tyranny Fang is in fact trying to reconstruct the weave using Mistra? Where is your allegiance then?
My allegiance is to Mistra. Not the reincarnated abomination that this seems to imply.
Fair enough.
I don't understand why everybody is so driven to serve a god and not their fellow man. Shouldn't you do what's most beneficial for those around you?
Oh, that's an interesting take from somebody who's using the Shadow Weave.
I agree.
Huh?
Shouldn't you be more respectful?
No.
What? What is she on about?
This man's been talking in my ear.
Mine as well.
Used to me.
Just
Useful ability.
talking.
How are you contacting the Shadow Weave?
What do you mean?
What do I...
You have a pact, do you not?
No.
How do you summon that blade of yours?
I just use it.
So you summon the blade?
I mean, I have my knife. Is that what you're talking about? Because you just pull the knife out of the sheath.
No, when we were defending the temple earlier, you summoned a sword out of the shadow itself.
Yes.
As those who are promised a blade by some intermediary power might do. I knew a blacksmith who really hated hex blades.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And?
I really don't want to have to cast Zone of Truth every time we have a little sit down.
Is it really a problem if he's drawing from the Shadow Weave? Are we not meant to be using all resources at our disposal?
Well, if our actions lead us to destroying the Shadow Weave, obviously his power would vanish. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't believe we are out to destroy the Shadow Weave. I agree with Mr. Todrin. This seems to be something entirely separate.
Well, I think we're getting a little off topic because we're curious about how you even came into this power, Yoros.
Yoros,
You know?
you don't have to tell me their name, but do you have a patron?
Divine patron.
You don't strike me as somebody
I-
savvy enough to access the Shadow Weave. Do you
Rude.
speak with somebody who is?
You've got something on your
Wait
shoulder,
now.
by the way.
My armor?
Yeah, what's that emblem on that other shoulder?
My cloak. Oh, I'm just gonna. It's the flaming fist emblem.
On the armor, if you raise the cloak?
Let's see the shoulder. Cloak's still on.
Yoros, is there anything you want to tell us?
Alright, fine.
Miss Worthware has confessed to consorting with devils. I'm sure your secret is not worse than that.
Oh god, it's not, is it?
I think so.
I would really hope not.
Well then, by all means.
You hear something. From up above you, in the temple, you hear something that seems like it must be wrong. It sounds like hooves. It sounds like shoed horses walking on marble.
I think your friends are here.
You hear shouting.
Oh, delightful.
Table
Well, this
this.
seems like a rude interruption.
Taldrin starts up the stairs.
No. Hold on.
Yes?
I haven't had a lot of dealings with the fists, but it's probably best that the one legion aligned with them lead tells them that we're not enemies.
We don't even know if it's actually the fist.
Who else brings horses on tomorrow?
I would imagine a
Paladins
lot of...
just wanted to bring their horse in for a ride.
Yoros, why don't
would
you lead
please
either
go
way?
talk to them?
Yeah, that's fine. I will get up from the couch and head upstairs.
Is anybody not going upstairs? I asked because we'll form a marching order if you do. Everybody's going up, is that correct? I hear no objections. Give me a marching order. So
Second.
arrange yourself in a way. It looks like you might have some competition for second.
No, you can do it.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Go ahead and arrange yourselves. If you're going up the stairs, no pressure if you don't. But if you do, let's get in the line of 6. Okay, ready to... I'm assuming Dave is ready because he got up and go. Okay, one moment. You find yourself somewhere familiar, but the people here are new. You see several paladins of the Radiant Heart arranged somewhat defensively, as if they're trying to contain the interlopers here into the temple. You see 2 men on horses and 3 men on foot accompanying them. All are wearing the red and orange armor of the Flaming Fists. Roll initiative. And actually, how about this? So it's 8 Pacific. Do we want to table this and come back next week? We're probably starting something that's going to take a while. Why don't we call it here? Not to leave you on a cliffhanger, but if we're going to roll initiative and sort of initiate this, why don't we? Is everybody good for next week?
Could be.
Yeah, should be.
Ridley? You're good? I think everybody's good then. Is that correct? Julie, you're good? Okay. Well, let's cut it here. I will see you next week to learn Yoros' secret, if any, and confront the Flaming Fist if there's anything to confront them over.
Everyone's so secretive.
This was such a good session, by the way. You guys are incredible. So thank you
Have
so
fun.
Thank you so much. See you next week. Thanks for playing.
Bye bye.
Bye.